You're watching Morning Express, and I dare say you're right on time. 6 a.m. on the dot, and we're here to inform you about the latest developments. As usual, we get to take a look at what has been covered in today's dailies. As always, we'll begin with Kenya's bold newspaper, The Standard, and the Daily Nation, just taking a look at some of the news-making headlines and what you can expect in today's dailies going forward. We'll definitely delve deeper into some of the big stories of the day covered in today's dailies with our well-able group of panelists as we highlight what you need to know about the latest developments. Once again, welcome to the broadcast. Do join us. It being a Thursday, we'll get to evaluate social issues later on during the show, taking a look at the role of TVETs as well as other developing matters related to gender. Welcome to the broadcast once again. Let's take a look at what's covered on the international pages. We begin with the Daily Monitor, just to inform you about what's transpiring in the neighboring countries, specifically Uganda right now, where schools may not reopen soon. That's according to the government, where officials say the country has started experiencing signs of the third wave of COVID-19. A challenge right there for the education stakeholders in the midst of a pandemic, even as the country is pushing for more vaccination. Stanbic Bank, hit by banking agents' fraud, even as security agencies are trying to recover funds from undisclosed number of implicated agents. WHO monitoring the new coronavirus variant named MU, or the Mu, I guess, which is a variant and has a constellation of mutations that indicate potential properties of immune escape. Well, that's scary news right there, but more details covered on that particular article, even as the government in Uganda is set to build 12 new markets, and they'll also construct modern recreational centers, taxi and bus parks in the beneficiary districts. That's the latest from Uganda. Over to Tanzania, The Citizen covering extensively one of the main stories on the page. Government suspends new fuel prices. The government has suspended those prices that came into effect on September 1st, Wednesday, and formed a team to investigate the cause of the rising prices. This is just after the people affected noted with concern the high number or the high level of rise in terms of the fuel prices. Tanzania finally reduces mobile money transaction levy after public outcry. Yet another issue where mobile money transaction levy had increased by 30%, and it seems to have been paused due to public outcry. South Africa's game supermarket to exit East Africa. Well, we've definitely seen some of these stores operating in Kenya as well, but they're set to leave East Africa, including Tanzania. More details on why that is. Fuel prices in Tanzania hit new high. Of course, public outcry has led to a review of those prices, even as the government has suspended the new prices that came into effect from September 1st, just yesterday. Over to CNN World News. The Afghanistan blame game. White House is set to review the chaotic evacuation operation, forcing Biden officials to confront how they got things wrong. Of course, the Biden administration standing by their decision to leave Afghanistan. I think the 31st day of August was the last day. That's when the last jet flew out of Afghanistan, leaving a 20-year war where the Americans had been involved. More details on that standoff, even as Joe Rogan, one of the instrumental individuals in the fight industry, has tested positive for COVID-19. That's the latest in terms of the international stories on the page. Make sure you're adequately informed. Okay, so that's the latest on the international scene. Let's get closer home in terms of news-making headlines. And looking at the front page of The Standard, this is one of the main stories you can expect today, where Interior Cabinet Secretary Dr. Fred Matiang'i maintains that the Deputy President William Ruto is one of the most protected Kenyans with adequate and qualified security. The Cabinet Secretary has rubbished reports that his security had been downgraded. Matiang'i, while appearing before the National Security and Administration Committee of the National Assembly, accused the Deputy President's side as addicts of sympathy, revealing that 257 police officers had been deployed to protect the second-in-command. KTN's Emmanuel Toh with the details.
After more than 10 days on the cross in a back-and-forth debacle concerning the change of DP William Ruto's security detail in his Karen and Sugoi homes, finally the Interior Ministry appeared before the National Security Committee of the National Assembly. The Interior CS Dr. Fred Matiang'i and his counterpart PS Dr. Karanja Kibicho, who had donned matching outfits, led a team of other senior security officers to dismiss the claims that DP Ruto's security had been withdrawn or downgraded.
It is out there in the public that there was withdrawal of GSU officers who were guarding or providing security to the Deputy President.
There was no withdrawal. It's a rearrangement of the second layer of security. Cumulatively, the strength of personnel allocated to this office is 257.
Matiang'i told the committee that Ruto's security had in fact been beefed up and is distributed in 3 layers. The first layer has 85 officers, among them 74 officers from the Elite Presidential Escort Unit, 5 General Service Unit officers, and 6 DCI officers. Further, there are other 121 officers who make up the second layer, who include officers from the Administration Police Unit and Prison Department. And lastly, 51 officers to provide auxiliary security to various properties owned by Ruto.
Meaning 254,200 Kenyans are exposed.
The details also showed that DP Ruto was the most protected person compared to all previous vice presidents and even the former Prime Minister Raila Odinga. Matiang'i said Jaramogi Oginga Odinga, Kenya's first vice president, had a total of 30 officers: Joseph Murumbi 22, Daniel Moi 34, Mwai Kibaki 26, Josephat Karanja 22, George Saitoti 30, Musalia Mudavadi 22, Michael Omalo 22, Mudi Awori 22, and Kalonzo Musyoka 26. He added that when ODM leader Raila Odinga was prime minister, he had 57 officers guarding him and his residences.
It is moral to deploy a policeman to guard your private enterprises when we have over 100,000 Kenyans who are employed to do the Kazi of private security.
The people propagating and the people causing this propaganda and bringing the country into so much tension is nobody else but leaders.
The politics of sympathy addiction, everything is about sympathy. Sympathize with me. I am dying, I'm being finished. The government is switching off the sun and the moon and so on.
The DP had recently downplayed the fiasco, terming plans by Parliament to discuss the matter a waste of parliamentary time.
The Deputy President is not more important than the ordinary citizen of this country. We are all equal before the law.
The committee is now grappling to craft a legislation to control the number of officers that a VIP or a VVIP is entitled to. After generating heated debate in the country, the Ministry of Interior and all other security agencies now maintain that the Deputy President is safe and the whole country is secure. Emmanuel Toh, KTN News from Parliament Buildings, Nairobi.
Now, on a similar note, other than 85 security officers in his inner layer and 121 in the second layer from different formations, Deputy President William Ruto, who has christened himself as a chief hustler, is said to have another team of at least 51 security officers manning his various business interests. The grilling session of Interior Cabinet Secretary just yesterday also turned out to be revelations of property allegedly owned by the Deputy President. But as Duncan Haemba reports, the Deputy President's spokesman David Mugonyi has dismissed some of the said property allocated to him, terming them fictitious.
In his presentation as Internal Security Officer number 1, Interior CS Dr. Fred Matiang'i went beyond the inner and second layers of security cordon thrown around Deputy President of 206 security personnel by laying bare a third layer which he termed as auxiliary security layer.
Officers who are assigned by the Inspector General because of a direct request from the Office of the Deputy President to installations either owned by the Deputy President or businesses where the Deputy President is likely to spend time, and therefore his securities are concerned.
Matiang'i tabled before Parliament a list of 10 properties associated with the DP Ruto and the number of security officers who provide round-clock surveillance. They include Kitengela Gas Station with 6 officers, Western Hotel in Nairobi, 6 security officers, Murumbi Farm in Transmara, Narok County, that is 1,000 acres, ADC Laikipia Mutara Ranch, 15,000 acres, Dolphin Hotel Mombasa, built on 3 hectares, Mata Farm in Taita Taveta on 2,537 hectares, all with 6 police officers per day. Other properties or interests are private residence in Elgon View, Eldoret, Koitalel Poultry Farm in Eldoret, private residence in Kosache, Eldoret, all having 4 officers each. Then Kwale Island Development Limited, Wilson Airport, that has 2 hangars and 5 choppers, has 5 security officers.
Cumulatively, the personnel, in terms of personnel, the strength of personnel allocated to this office is 257. As I've tabulated, I've told you 74 from presidential escort, 5 DCI, 5 GSU, 6 DCI, total 85. Then you had the 121, as I said, plus about, this figure may not, the 51 may not actually be totally accurate, because given the amount of time that we had, we didn't get all the notifications where they have been given. There could be slightly more than that. But then we're roughly working with that estimate. That is the strength of personnel.
Matiang'i added that it is not only the Deputy President who can make a request to the Inspector General of Police.
But there are some who, because of the interest of the Deputy President in particular areas, his office requests directly that we avail police officers.
But in a quick rejoinder, Deputy President Ruto has termed Matiang'i claims as reckless. His spokesperson David Mugonyi says, and I quote, "Many properties allocated to the Deputy President in his statement to Parliament are in fact not his. In any event, the DP went on record as early as 2018 to announce his readiness to undergo a lifestyle audit as per the President's directive. This false association with strange and fictitious properties is therefore unnecessary and malicious." End of quote. Meanwhile, DP Ruto has filed an appeal challenging High Court judgment which determined that land on which his Western Hotel is built on belongs to the Kenya Civil Aviation Authority. Duncan Haemba, KTN News.
So those 2 stories sort of form the basis of what you can expect on the front page of today's dailies. Over to Kenya's bold newspaper, The Standard. They've gone with this headline: Matiang'i exposes DP's property and security, all to do with the fresh revelations right there, where the CS spilled the beans on Ruto's vast estate and details of his security as Deputy President team hit back, denying that some of the assets were his and accusing Matiang'i of spreading falsehoods. So on one side, he's accused of spreading falsehoods, even as he mentions all to do with politics of sympathy addiction. Over to the front page of the Daily Nation, same headline: Matiang'i unmasks hustler, all to do with the wealth and the well-guarded secret of just how much Deputy President William Ruto owns. All has been laid bare, revealing a list of 10 properties that easily place the country's second in command in the League of Billionaires. The properties include a chicken farm, are under round-the-clock state security, according to Interior CS Fred Matiang'i. And this particular story has definitely been on the tongues of many political figureheads due to the fact that perhaps his supporters were mentioning that his security had been withdrawn, but according to the security agencies, this was just a routine reorganization, as simple as that. So we'll try and delve deeper into this. Joining me in studio to help us deliberate on this matters and more, Kariuki Ngunjiri, who's a political analyst. It's great to have you with us. and we're joined by Kevin Osido via way of Zoom, a governance expert. Gentlemen, many thanks for your time. Good morning. Kariuki, I'd like to begin with you. It seems on one side, the CS for Interior, Matiang'i, has definitely removed the lead in terms of the properties allegedly owned by Deputy President, even as he highlighted that there are 257 officers guarding him and his properties. So was it truly political witch hunt or just a routine reorganization after the proceeds from this committee sitting?
Thank you, Jesse. First of all, it is clear that the security of the Deputy President was altered in a way that was not explained and not in consultation with him as a person who is the holder of that office. It's fact that in the public domain, it was a signal that was meant to send a certain message to the Deputy President that there is somebody who yields the monopoly of power in the country. So that is one. Number two, I think that I will describe what they are calling Matiang'i mention of the property of the Deputy President as unnecessary and reckless, because I think that for a country like Kenya, which has faced various security threats, and in the past you remember from Al-Shabaab, it is very important for properties and certain areas that are of strategic interest to high-ranking officials within the Kenyan government to be put in secrecy, because you don't know what might happen in those areas and somebody might just decide to take advantage of those. So I think that whatever Matiang'i was telling Parliament yesterday exposes the Deputy President or those that work for him or those that are close to him to certain security threats that would arise from people wanting to take advantage of the situation and wanting to perhaps send a certain significant message in their bad orchestrated moves. I also say that for a country like Kenya again, where we have a lot of issues within, for example, the governance ecosystem, it is also important for any public official to hold the office they yield in high regard. It is not supposed to go to an extent of trying to downgrade any office that has a constitutional mandate in the country. Any elected office, as any appointed office, has a threshold of operation. And I think that the offices that exist today must respect the fact that they are all within government and they work for the people of the Republic of Kenya. And so the kind of scripted moves that you normally see in some of these committees are not what Kenyans would say is accountability and what they seek in a government.
Okay, so in terms of being summoned, how best would you picture the CS defending his position? Because he was summoned by members of parliament to speak on the security behind the Deputy President. And he mentioned 257 officers are guarding him and his properties, and even went further to mention that 74 presidential escort unit officers have been with him since he got to office. So how else would you expect him to defend his position since he was summoned?
I think that first of all, he did not say why the officers were changed, and this is something that has not happened for the past 9 years. So Kenyans were asking, why did this happen at this time, and why change GSU with AP? So that is the question that the CS did not answer. Number two, I also think that the fact that the CS yesterday said that he needs maybe a private and off-camera session to be able to explain why the security of the Deputy President was changed also gives us another advancement to this. Will perhaps Kenyans get what they seek as accountability from government officials?
Okay. Speaking of accountability, let me hold you right there. 257, don't you think that's too much in terms of regulating the number of police officers assigned to a particular office?
I think that there are different layers, like they have been outlined in that newspaper, and what is around social media and everywhere, circulating widely, that some of them are upon request. I'm yet to verify, and this is affirmed by David Mugonyi, the spokesman of the Deputy President, that the properties, some of them which were listed there in that list, do not actually belong to the Deputy President. So perhaps this is the culture that has been ongoing to bring out a certain theme on the image of the Deputy President, and also seek to give the public news and also give the public certain issues to discuss within the court of public opinion as regards to the mudslinging that has been ongoing on the Deputy President.
So it might be political profiling, according to you. Let's bring in Kevin Osido. I mean, we've had this conversation ever since the security organization around the Deputy President was restructured, and according to this security officials, it's a routine reorganization. During that particular committee sitting, it triggered mixed reactions from the committee members, as others mentioned that the DP was abusing powers by having police officers guard his private businesses. So as you perhaps talk about the number of police officers behind this and some of the revelations that came up, do you think there should be regulation? Because this is what Matiang'i said, enact a law that brings about limits to solve the problem of the number of officers assigned to a particular VIP. But what's your take on this, Osido?
Thank you so much, Jesse. In fact, I am extremely surprised as a Kenyan and a person who goes up, waking up early in the morning to do my work, to be able to contribute to the GDP of the country and also to resources that support various institutions, including the National Police Service, for which the role of the various functions and agencies of the police, whether GSU, Kenya Police, Police Traffic, Traffic Police, or Administration Police lie. Now, if you look at the Constitution and the various legal establishments, there is in fact a clear indication on who needs to do what. So much so that if you look at our functions of the various institutions, including the National Police Service, there is already a clear-cut requirement or establishment on the number of police officers that are supposed to guard various government high infrastructure installations, and also including individuals. And the Deputy President is a second highest ranking individual in the Republic of Kenya after His Excellency the President. To have 257, in my view, honestly goes beyond the required international, regional, and national quotas, where, for instance, we are talking about 1 police officer to 400 Kenyans. It therefore means, Jesse, that if you have 257 officers manning you as an individual and including your private installations, how much, therefore, of deprivation do we give to Kenyans who are not guarded by police officers? And that is probably why we have Kenyans having to go to police stations to report cases, and there are queues there. So you are waiting, say, for instance, you've been assaulted or your area has been raided by thugs, and you go to a police officer, to a police station at 6 a.m., and you have to wait until 11:30 for the first person to be listened to by police, by the police officers. It means that, in my way of looking at it, Parliament, or the Committee on National Administration and Security, in fact, in my view, it's rather a waste of time, like somebody said in the report that you had, because we cannot be having parliamentarians to sit to discuss an individual and how they are secured. There is already an established National Police Service Act that indicates who is supposed to do what, whether it is a CS Interior, whether it is the Deputy Inspector General of Police, or whether it is the Inspector General of Police. who is supposed to ensure that the deputy president is guarded, including a number of officers. I want to disagree with my friend who mentioned that the deputy president was not briefed. In fact, it is not the responsibility of the deputy president to be consulted or to be briefed on who is supposed to guard him or his private installations. Under the office of the deputy president that now falls under the presidency, you actually have a protocol officer, you have a head of security whose role and responsibility is to ensure that his or her boss is properly secured, is properly guarded, and that it is only at will and at whims for the deputy president to want to gain interest on who is either protecting him or his private installations. Number two, the CS actually indicated that the transfer, so the rearrangement was done in consultation with the National Security Council. Jesse, the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya is a member of the National Security Council. This is the second highest in command by all manners of hierarchy. This is an individual who receives very high-level security intelligence from all arms of government that have to do with security. It would therefore be hypocritical for us to be saying that the Deputy President is not aware about the security of the great Republic of Kenya and is a gentleman who has showed interest and probably would be president if God allows it and the people of Kenya vote for him. So it would be hypocritical for him to be saying he was not part of the process and privy to the rearrangement that went on in the changes of security within the infrastructure. Lastly, Jesse, I am utterly amazed by the amount of wealth that the Deputy President has. In this country, we have a law, Chapter 6, Article 10, that talks about national values and principles. Within that, when you talk about integrity, public officers and civil servants have been asked to fill what is called a wealth declaration form. I don't think the CS Interior would be lying to the people of Kenya in his knowledge and wisdom of presentation to the National Assembly, because remember, National Assembly is an arm of government for where if you carry falsified documents, you can actually be arrested and charged for providing false information or lying to the public, because we have also seen people actually presenting petitions under oath at the National Assembly. So if the CS Interior carries documents that are printed and he says this is what the Deputy President owns, and he even went further and said that if we were given more time, because the summon, quote unquote, came within a very short time, we would have provided much more information. What this presents to us, Jesse, is the urgency within which Kenyans have to move to be able to push public officers and high-octane voltage civil servants to declare their wealth, so that we don't have people saying you are lying or not telling the truth around what the Deputy President of Kenya owns. And that really needs to begin from the President himself, all the way to the chiefs, to the ward administrators, and all the other people who engage within government insofar as service delivery is concerned to the citizens. Lastly, Jesse, we have to go beyond looking at the presentation yesterday and also follow through this process to ensure that Parliament moves very fast to set a very clear guidelines, despite what the Constitution says and what the National Police Service Act has in place, to move further and establish clear mechanisms of how we reorganize security for our high-level government officials, especially what we have seen happening with the Deputy President, because today he is the Deputy President. Tomorrow, he could be the President if God allows it and if the people of Kenya vote for him. There will be another Deputy President beyond Mheshimiwa William Ruto. How will we want to see that Deputy President engage within security mechanisms? Number three, or rather lastly, Jesse, is to look at what does this mean for us insofar as security is concerned? And probably is to say that we have to move further and look at the violent extremist organizations and individuals, including people who may want to take advantage of the information that has been prepared and presented by the CS Interior. But that also means that we have to be very clear about how we guard high-level infrastructure of the Republic of Kenya, not just for the Deputy President, but also embassies. Look at, for instance, what we saw happening in Tanzania, where an individual went and raided an embassy, the French embassy, What if that thing happened in Kenya? And then we are saying that we have 257 officers guarding an individual and his private property, and we fail to have very well experienced and well prepared security officers that have adequate equipment, including guns and other infrastructure that go with security, to be able to protect this kind of infrastructure. Jesse, I am appalled by what I saw happening yesterday, and I am hoping that His Excellency, the Deputy President, will basically just look at Kenyans and say, I want to be part of you. I want to be your president in future if God allows me and if you vote for me. And so let's guard this country in a manner in which anybody can actually feel confident, safe, and secure, because this country belongs to all of us, Jesse.
Definitely across. So, Ngunjiri, in terms of the number of officers deployed to the DP's office, perhaps tell us if you pick an issue with that, because according to some legislators who are in that committee, they mentioned my constituency with a population of 204,000 has between 70 and 80 police officers. One police officer guards 3,300 people. So are we playing politics of an issue where some counties might have less protection than the office of the Deputy President and his properties? Well, what's your take on this?
First of all, the Deputy President does not allocate himself security. He is allocated that security by the relevant authorities
upon
that are
request.
within. Yes,
yeah.
But not necessarily upon request. They are those constituted, for example, through the presidential escort team,
yes,
which must always be there, and there are other teams. And so the Deputy President, William Ruto, is just an office holder.
True.
Anybody who comes to that office in future will also be getting the same kind of security. So this is not a question of whether the Deputy President is, as an individual, complaining about his security. It is a right that is supposed to be within that office. Number two, I think that the gesture and the timing of everything is what brings these questions. And I think that yesterday you are able to see a scripted way of answering some of these things, because I don't understand why it is not easy for somebody to say this is why this and this and this was done, or upon this and this consideration, this is why we decided to make this decision. Then you could see, and like my friend, who I believe was waiting for such kind of stuff, which I think he has not verified, so that he can bring it to the public, court of public opinion and form a discussion. The issues of who owns what, where is it located, and such kind of things are issues that the office of the Deputy President has already disputed. And David Mugonyi has said that those properties that are mentioned there are actually not properties of the Deputy President. So the discussion, I believe, in Parliament was meant to create a certain theme. And those who were the architects of it